Okay, let's get started. I want to figure out what number would I plug in for x to make this equation true. Now, there are three ways to do it. The first way, you could do a diamond problem. Remember, doing 12x squared, and then we have 8x on the bottom, and then do that thing. But you could just look at it this way. What numbers multiply together to give you 12, but add together to give you 8, just like we do in the diamond problem? Well, that would be 6 times 2, like this. You would put x plus 6 and x plus 2 equals 0, because 6 times 2 is 12, and 6 plus 2 is 8. That's how it works. So now we could say that what number makes this equal to 0? -6. If you plug in -6 in for that, it's a 0. And the other one is -2. So those are our two answers. If we took this number and replaced it where the x is in both spots, and then did the math, we would end up with 0. Okay, that's the first way, and that is called factoring. Now the next one is going to be called completing the square, so let's do that. Okay, here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to subtract 12 from both sides first, and we get something that looks like this now. So what we look at is right here. Take half that number, half of 8 is 4, and square it, and you get 16. Half of that number squared is 16. So we'll put that one down. So I'm going to say plus 16, and then plus 16 on the other side. Now the reason that we do that is that we look at this, and again, we look at factoring this thing and say, what two numbers multiply together to give me 16, but if I add them to get 8? Well, they're the same number, 4 and 4. That's why we do this. We make it a perfect square. So it turns out to be this. X plus 4 squared. Now that's the same thing as over here we get 4. Now what's the next thing we do? Well, we take the square root of both sides. And when we do that, we get x plus 4 equals 2. But we also get x plus 4 equals -2. Because the square root is both positive and negative. Two answers. So what makes this true? Well, for this one, right here, -2 plus 4 would be 2. So if I plugged in a -2 where that x is, you would get that answer of 2. So x equals -2. Solving this equation. Same thing here. Like if we subtract 4 from both sides, we would get, what is that? Well, that goes away, and we get x equals -6, just like we did on the first slide. Okay, so that's completing the square. So you have the situation where you subtract and then figure out what this is, factor it. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense along with your notes. Now let's do the last one, which is the quadratic formula. Okay, let's try this. Now we're going to use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula. So it goes with that story. Xavier was a negative boy who couldn't decide whether to go to the radical party or stay home and be square. Miss out on 4 awesome chicks. And the party was all over at 2 a.m. Okay, so we're going to say that A is equal to 1, B is equal to 8, and C is equal to 12. Essentially, all the numbers that are in front of these are called terms. So there's 1, 2, 3 terms. The number in front here is 1. We just don't write it. That's an 8. That's a 12. 1, 8, 12. There we go. Now we're going to take these numbers and replace them where those letters are. Here we go. So, let's see. X equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 12 all over 2 times 1. Okay, so let's see, I just want to separate this, right, like that. So there's our next step, like this. Okay, let's do the arithmetic here. And x equals negative 8 plus or minus, that's going to be 64 minus, let's see, what is that? That's going to be 48 divided by 2. We're going to say x equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of, what is that going to be? Oh, of course, 16 divided by 2. So we end up with x is equal to negative 8 plus 4 over 2 and negative 8 minus 4 over 2. Well, 8 plus a negative, that's negative 4 over 2, which is going to give me negative 2 as an answer. And this one is going to be negative 12 over 2, which is negative 6 as an answer. Just like the other ones. So there's the quadratic formula, and then the other one was completing the square, and then just plain old factoring. Okay, I hope that helps, and good luck tomorrow on the quiz. So let's not forget the story. Here we go. Xavier was a negative boy who couldn't decide whether to go to the radical party or stay home and be squared. Miss out on 4 awesome chicks. The party was all over at 2 a.m. That's one way to remember this. So we know that A is equal to 1 because it's the number that's in front of this first term is what it's called. So there's a 1 there. And then B is going to be 6. And then C is going to be 8. So let's just plug them in. So let's see, what do we have? We have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8. Okay, and then we've got 2 times 1 on the bottom. So that turns into negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 32 over 2. So we end up with negative 6 plus square root of 4 over 2 and negative 6 minus the square root of 4 over 2. Well, I know that the square root of 4 is 2. So this is negative 6 plus 2. So it would be negative 4 divided by 2 is going to be negative 2. And over here, if we do the math, let's see. Square root of 4 is 2. So that's negative 6 minus 2 Combine that, you get negative 8 divided by 2, which would be negative 4. Negative 4. There you go, just like the other one.